anything that a foreign leader does that is not completely in line with Donald Trump's ideas and policies will grate on Donald Trump. He does not hold a lot of space around him for sort of polite disagreement or lack of consensus amongst allies. It's his way or the highway. And so I think the challenge for Keir Starmer is on the one hand, to project strength and to make it clear that the UK will not be pushed around by Donald Trump and that he will look out for Britain's interests, while at the same time being, sort of obsequious is not the right word, but sort of, being tolerant of or open to Donald Trump's ideas to an extent that doesn't antagonize Donald Trump. And that's the fine balance that all world leaders, but especially in some cases, I think Keir Starmer will have to find.
So Keir Starmer has sent his warmest congratulations to President Trump and said the US and UK will continue to build on the unshakable foundations of their historic alliance. The King has also sent a private message of congratulations. And the Prime Minister is hoping to meet the new president within weeks. But there are undoubtedly huge challenges ahead in the relationship between two leaders with very different political agendas. Let's talk to Lew Lukens. He's a former US ambassador to the UK. Good evening to you, Lew.
Hi, Carol.
As we wait to hear from Donald Trump again tonight, what do you think his approach to the UK is going to be? Very notable that although Boris Johnson's been there for the inauguration speech, Liz Truss was there, Suella Braverman, Nigel Farage, of course, but no Keir Starmer, and not even a David Lammy.
Well, my hope is that Marco Rubio, as soon-to-be confirmed Secretary of State, and some of the other folks around Trump working on national security issues will understand and stress to Donald Trump the importance of the US-UK relationship when it comes to national security and defense and intelligence, and maybe try to tamper down some of Trump's worst instincts, which I think would lend him to not be particularly warm and friendly with the Prime Minister at this moment. The President Trump attacked the Liberal Party a few months ago when he felt that they were helping Kamala Harris in her campaign. And I think on a personal level, that relationship could be off to a rocky start. I'm hoping that the cooler heads around him who deal with national security issues will impress upon him the importance of the relationship.
Yeah, I know that you've worked with Donald Trump in the past. As you say, it hasn't got off to a good start. We've had Elon Musk, who's got a key place in Donald Trump's inner circle now, engaged in this war of words with the Prime Minister over his handling of the grooming gangs scandal. We've had all those comments in the past from people, including David Lammy, who's now the Foreign Secretary. Do you think that those will continue to grate with the new president, that they will affect the relationship between Donald Trump and Keir Starmer, which is important, whatever everyone says about the fundamental importance of the special relationship being between two states, two countries, the US and the UK, that personal relationship matters, doesn't it?
It does matter. I mean, anything that a foreign leader does that is not completely in line with Donald Trump's ideas and policies will grate on Donald Trump. He does not hold a lot of space around him for sort of polite disagreement or lack of consensus amongst allies. It's his way or the highway. And so I think the challenge for Keir Starmer is on the one hand, to project strength and to make it clear that the UK will not be pushed around by Donald Trump and that he will look out for Britain's interests, while at the same time being, sort of obsequious is not the right word, but sort of, being tolerant of or open to Donald Trump's ideas to an extent that doesn't antagonize Donald Trump. And that's the fine balance that all world leaders, but especially in some cases, I think Keir Starmer will have to find.
And if, as Donald Trump has said he's going to, he carries out some pretty brutal immigration policies, he then goes on to impose tariffs, which he talked about only in general terms. I mean, what do you think are the prospects of Britain, as Keir Starmer and others around him clearly hope? What is the likelihood that Britain will try and get a carve-out when it comes to the UK, perhaps leaning on Donald Trump's love of our royal family?
Well, I think that helps for one thing. I mean, I do think that Donald Trump has a fondness for the United Kingdom, which will help. I think, when Donald Trump looks at tariffs, he's looking at a couple of big baskets of tariffs. One is around China. One is around the European Union. There's interesting dynamics going on around the North American Free Trade Agreement, the USMCA. So Canada and Mexico. The UK seems to have so far kind of avoided the spotlight when it comes to tariffs, but there are proposals for global across the board tariffs. I'm not so sure those will be implemented, but if they are, that would certainly impact on the United Kingdom. And I think the approach that the UK should take, that I would be looking at if I were prime minister, is to really get in there early with President Trump and start working toward, if not a free trade agreement, which is very difficult. We saw that in the first Trump administration. They were hopeful, and that was when Boris Johnson was and Theresa May were prime minister, so a conservative government. They were unable to come to an agreement on a free trade agreement. But I think working toward a free trade-ish agreement between the United States and the United Kingdom is the best approach that the government could take there.
The other thing, of course, to bear in mind is just how huge the gulf is in terms of their political approaches between Donald Trump and Keir Starmer. If we just take one other example from his inauguration speech, Trump talking once again about drill, baby, drill. He's going to be unraveling a whole series of Joe Biden's green policies at a time when Keir Starmer is really keen to pursue the green agenda. Donald Trump likely to pull out of those Paris Accords commitments on climate change. I mean, that's just one other policy, isn't it, on which the two leaders have really fundamental disagreements.
Yeah, I think on energy policy, even on sort of national security and defense policy, I think the two leaders will have differences of opinion on how to approach the Middle East and Russia's war in Ukraine. I think there are any large number of issues on which these two men will likely disagree. And I think, coming back to your point earlier, Carol, a lot of this will depend on the personalities and whether they can connect, in person, and how kind of friendly that connection can be. And I think the prime minister is going to really have to make a big effort to show President Trump that to identify the areas on which they agree and stress those, while at the same time maintaining the UK's independence and its ability to pursue its own policies that may or may not be aligned with President Trump's.
Just briefly, if you could, what about Peter Mandelson, named as the new British ambassador to the United States? That seems to have already ruffled a few feathers. Is he going to have a difficult ride in Washington, or could his appointment still be blocked?
Well, I don't think his appointment will be blocked. I'd be hard pressed to see the Trump administration not agreeing to him coming. Look, I think anytime there's a change of administration, it's probably wise to have a new ambassador. I know Dame Pierce was very effective and regarded very well in Washington as Her Majesty and then His Majesty's ambassador. But that said, I think the start of a Trump administration is probably a good time to change the guard and start with a fresh face. And I think Peter Mandelson has a vast wealth of experience and history working in the United States and with the United States, and I'm sure he'll be very, very effective in that role.
Lew Lukens, former US ambassador to the UK. Really good to speak to you. Thanks so much for joining us.